January 30th, 2020. Boy, do we live in an interesting time. What's cool about it is we're living in a time where people are really starting to wake up and question everything, right? An epidemic like the coronavirus, like we're seeing right now, used to be something that was just powerful enough to scare the crap out of everybody, get them back in line, get them to support a one world government, get them to do their vaccinations because, oh my gosh, look at this scary thing that's out of our control. And please, government, help us with your vaccines and help us with your resources that we don't have. Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. More and more people are seeing through the bull crap, and I love it. And so if you aren't paying attention and you view these pieces of just mass propaganda that have been going on for decades, you have to understand if you're learning about how propaganda is used at a societal level, at a national level, and at a global level, it is a long, long game. Okay, it's not something that's developed right away to get you to change your behavior tomorrow. It's something that's slowly conditioning your way of thinking so that you don't even realize you just got suckered into their plan over the past 10, 20, 30 years. That is how subtle but effective these methods of manipulating the masses have become. And coronavirus is just another example. But what's exciting and why I'm laughing and smiling about it all is there are so many people out there that are wise to the game and that are poking holes in the mainstream narratives in real time. It's fantastic. So if you're not following independent news and independent reporters, people like Del Bigtree of The Highwire, Ben Swan of Truth in Media, and other independent, wherever you like to go to find independent news, you really need to do it. Get away from the big mainstream studios that are just feeding you the crap designed to manipulate your independence and keep you in line and keep you in fear so that you will support coming together as a one world government and letting go of nationalism and just destroying our freedoms. So let's leverage coronavirus as an example here, and let's dive into what is really going on. Honestly, nobody freaking knows except those that are responsible for it. But the mainstream narrative that they're trying to push at you is full of holes, and people are poking those holes and exposing the lies so quickly. Their tools are failing over and over again. It's fantastic. All right, so let's just jump over and show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. Where do I even want to start? I have so many things open. Yeah, let's look at some of this propaganda. So I'm wondering how many of you guys have started watching the Pandemic documentary series that just got released on Netflix. And it's no coincidence of the timing of it all. It's all perfectly correlating to keep everybody in that fear box, right? And it's working for sure. People are like, what do we do about coronavirus? Should I be worried about coronavirus? I don't dare fly. I don't dare do this. I don't dare do that. Well, it is real. And yes, you're at a very high risk of getting sick. But how did it get started? That's the real question. And don't buy the lies that it started in this Wuhan farmers market with live animals, because this type of market has been around for centuries. And the pandemic that's going around is not a natural virus. You're going to learn more about that here in just a minute. So back to the docuseries. If you've watched at least the first couple episodes, I watched about 2.5 episodes of this last night. And the whole time I'm just shaking my head, because if you've done years and years of research on infectious disease, on pandemics, on vaccines, outside of Rockefeller medicine and what they want you to believe, but actually looking at the real world data of what actually happens with vaccination, what actually happens with infectious disease, why the death rates are so high, it goes far beyond what you're told in headlines. This series is absolutely a fear-mongering series where they are just highlighting some of the most desperate or worst case scenarios of infection, which they will never allow you to look at the horrible worst case scenarios of vaccine injury. Those don't exist, even though there are hundreds of thousands of stories. You can't look at those. But look at this worst case scenario of influenza. And influenza is so bad. And yes, they're throwing out all this fear mongering about coronavirus right now and focusing on the death toll and focusing on the numbers, and nobody's reporting anything consistently. It's 4,000 cases. No, it's 100,000 cases. No, it's 6,000 cases. No, it's 8,000 cases. Now it's 150 deaths. Who the frick knows what's going on, because it's all trying to be covered up. The reporting is knee-jerk reaction, and it's unreliable. So it's just adding to the fear, and that's all done on purpose, guys. They want you to think like nobody knows what's going on. They know exactly what's going on, and this wasn't an accident. Anyway, if you go watching this pandemic docuseries, really go in there with an objective mind. Understanding that, yeah, people get sick, and that's okay. And there are going to be sick people in your life that don't live a great, healthy lifestyle, that may be battling chronic kidney failure, non-alcoholic fatty liver, type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, all kinds of health problems that could be a pre-existing condition or comorbidity that if they do get exposed to something like coronavirus, yeah, they're going to be more likely to suffer severe symptoms and potentially death. But if you do live a healthy lifestyle, you arm your body with the tools that it needs. You support your immune system with proper nutrition, vitamins, minerals, everything that your body needs to produce antioxidants on its own, to bring in exogenous antioxidants from your diet and supplementation if necessary. You're going to have the tools you need to overcome these infections naturally. There will be some issues along the way. But there's some articles out there that kind of talk about the odd timing of this pandemic outbreak propaganda coming at you, and really the drama that's used is so easy to see if you watch documentaries and you know how they build up the sensationalism of certain topics to get your buy-in emotionally. They really are trying to focus on how scary epidemics are, how scary influenza is, and how stupid you are if you're not getting the vaccine. And then they go into the vaccine stories and these heroes that are spending all this time and dedicating their lives to the vaccine interventions and creating all these life-saving tools. It's unreal, because of course they're giving you worst case scenarios on the infectious side and best case scenarios on the vaccine side, and nothing in between, right? And there's so much in between. In fact, the majority of everyone's life is going to be somewhere in the middle there. And you have to be able to think of that objectively as you watch this sensationalistic, dramatic presentation of a potential outbreak or potential pandemic. And the very last quote in this about the creator of the Pandemic series, Crowell is hoping Pandemic's release will be able to cut through the confusion and worry to provide much needed context and understanding, not just the coronavirus, but future outbreaks as well. I think this could have been a scaremongering piece, because this subject is so frightening at its very core. For For some it might be. But we worked hard to make this series something that is informative and even optimistic because of the work that gets highlighted in this series. The work that's highlighted is all about the pharmaceutical industry and how they're trying to get your buy-in that vaccines are going to save your life and these infectious diseases are a threat to all of humanity and you're all going to die if you get sick. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Okay, we're not all going to die if we get sick. Yes, some people are more immunocompromised than others. Some people are much healthier than others. We all should be doing our best at preventative medicine, not interventions like vaccines and antibiotics and antivirals. I'm talking preventative medicine as lifestyle changes, positive lifestyle changes that you can make to your dietary choices, to the timing of your diet, meaning when you eat, managing, sure, you can manage caloric intake if that's something you're scared of. More importantly, start managing your hormone production and limiting the number of times you eat throughout the day to limit the hormone changes that have to happen every time that you eat. Insulin production, human growth hormone, all these different things that are a cascade of lifestyle that are going to impact your ability to fight infectious disease in the future. Pause one second. Okay, and I'm back, sorry. There are going to be times when emergency intervention may be appropriate, right? Don't step in with your fever reducers and pain reducers, which are actually going to block essential functions of your immune system and actually limit your immune system from fighting efficiently, creating a longer disease, creating more of a viral count in your body, and making you spread the disease harder and stronger just by taking a fever reducer, like a nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drug, like Tylenol, ibuprofen, aspirin. Any of those things are actually going to prolong the illness, make it more virulent in your body, and increase the spread of the disease to everybody. You will be sick. It may be a week, it may be two. It may be unpleasant. Your body, if you let it, will fight that. You know, vitamin C is important. Vitamin D is important. Vitamin A is important. Magnesium is important. If you have a good balanced diet, you have a surplus of all of these things. If you don't understand what you need, start supplementing where you need to, and correct your diet, correct your lifestyle. Get healthy to stay healthy. Okay? It's not just about controlling your weight. It's about controlling your entire ecosystem. You're not just a human body. You're an ecosystem of human cells, bacteria, viruses, fungus, yeasts. It's all important. Okay, and you start destroying these things with antibiotics, antimicrobials, antivirals, anti-life medications, and you create a huge imbalance and are opening the door to bad bacteria, viruses, molds, and things to overtake the balance and create chronic illness in your body, along with the acute infection that you're facing at the time. So pay attention to what's going on. Let's jump back over and look at a really great article over at Zero Hedge. And if you're not following the deep state, you need to understand the elite groups that have been controlling the world and the world governments for so long have a long game in mind. And these outbreaks here and there and the propaganda around it and the fear and the control, disease is just one area where they utilize fear. They do the same thing with so many other things, with politics. I mean, the whole purpose of Republican and Democrat is to create division and divide us and keep us contentious, the duality of it all, right? So this is a really great article talking about how a viral pandemic benefits the globalist agenda. And again, the New World Order wants a one world government, the globalists. So the world today suffers from highly fragile economic and geopolitical conditions. This isn't news to most people in the liberty movement that have been tracking the downward spiral for years, but it is news to a majority of average Americans who rarely venture to get in-depth information on any issue. And that's the key. You really got to dig deeper. When any issue is getting just blasted in the news, one of the first questions you should always ask is, what aren't they telling me? And go look for more that's not being reported by the mainstream. The fact of the matter is, even though there are millions of us who are aware of the dangers, we're still a minority. So let's help everybody wake up. This creates serious set of frustrations. When the common citizen is oblivious to the existence of a threat, trying to explain to them the source of the threat becomes a waste of time. And of course, you just get the conspiracy theorist hat thrown on you and you're dismissed immediately. So how can they see the root of the problem if they don't even know the problem is there? Great question. So yes, the world is on the verge of a violent sea change, but this is not the most important issue. The most important issue is that the precarious situation is not the product of random chance, simple greed, base human frailty, or an overly complex system, as mainstream experts will predictably claim. It is actually deliberately engineered chaos. It's a deliberately engineered chaos box designed to serve the interests of a very select few. And this is how propaganda works. The globalist agenda is complicated in design, but simple in goals. Order out of chaos, create and exploit every crisis to manipulate the public into consenting. But consent for what? As Richard N. Gardner, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State of International Organizations under Kennedy and Johnson and a member of the Trilateral Commission, wrote in the April 1974 issue of the Council of Foreign Relations journal, Foreign Affairs, in an article titled The Hard Road to World Order. In short, the House of World Order will have to be built from the bottom up rather from the top down. It will look a lot like a great booming, buzzing confusion, to use William James' famous description of reality, but an end run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece, will accomplish much more than the old-fashioned frontal assault. And again, this is going on all around us, subtly, throughout our lives, and we don't even realize we're being slowly manipulated to buy into this new world order. Global pandemic, whether natural event or deliberately engineered, deliberately engineered, actually serves the purposes of the globalist establishment in a number of ways. First and foremost, it's a superb distraction. It really is. The general public, overcome with fears of an invisible force of nature that can possibly kill them at any moment, will probably forget all about the much bigger threat to their life, liberty, and future. The subsequent collapse of the massive everything bubble and the globalist solution that a pandemic can trigger. We are eating out of their hands during these pandemics. People are so easily influenced by the fear. The coronavirus is only a moderate threat in comparison to economic crisis. That said, let's confront a few issues concerning the virus itself before we get to the economic questions. Virus disinformation. I have seen a lot of delusional assumptions and outright disinformation being spread by people in regards to this potential pandemic. First, the notion that it was caused by Chinese citizens eating bats or being exposed to live animal market is rather ridiculous. We've seen no hard evidence whatsoever that this is true. I believe that a narrative is a cover for the fact that the city of Wuhan, where the virus outbreak began, is the home of not one, but two level 4 biohazard labs. Okay, they're going to call these biosafety facilities. Okay, that's just a cover-up for biowarfare facility. Biosafety, biowarfare. Same thing. I have a hard time ignoring the strange coincidence of the high-level biohazard labs in Wuhan in favor of the idea that the virus was launched by chance due to the odd diets of central Chinese people. Given the evidence, it appears that the coronavirus was gestated in a lab, not in someone's bat or snake soup. In 2017, scientists outside of China warned that these labs were not secure and that a virus might escape on the facilities. And it sure as heck did. I would use the term escape loosely, as there is a possibility that this event was created intentionally. The virus itself has certain hallmarks of being engineered, which it does, including its long dormant period without visible symptoms, and the current strain is probably derived from the one the Chinese stole a year ago from a lab in Winnipeg, Canada, which they did. But it gets even weirder. Only 3 months ago, back in October, John Hopkins and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the World Economic Forum, which is a hive of self-professed globalists, ran a pandemic simulation.
Prior to the coronavirus outbreak, the John Hopkins Center for Health Security.
I actually didn't mean to click that, so let me go back. Event 201, keep that in mind. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, ran a pandemic simulation called Event 201, specifically focused on coronavirus, not Ebola, not swine flu, not avian flu, but coronavirus, just 3 months ago. And if you are watching these type of simulations that happen, they did a simulation about planes being flown into skyscrapers literally at the same time that it was happening on 9/11. If you don't know that, go check out some of the documentaries by James Corbett and the simulations that they were running the same time they were actually doing it. This is no different. So they ran this Event 201 simulation specifically about coronavirus. The simulation features the spread of coronavirus in South America, but blamed it on animals to human transmission from pigs in the simulation. Now we're talking snakes and bats. The conclusion of the exercise was that the national governments were nowhere near ready, scoring a 40 out of 100 on their preparedness scale, and the simulation projected over 65 million deaths worldwide. Event 201 played out almost exactly as it has been in China today. Some very disingenuous or perhaps rather stupid people have been arguing that this kind of thing is normal, claiming that we're lucky that the elites have been running simulations in advance in order to save us from the coronavirus outbreak. Now I'm just going to stop there. You guys are welcome to go read this article. This is on Zero Hedge, How a Viral Pandemic Benefits the Globalist Agenda. But it's really important that I end on that line, that we're really lucky that they've been running these simulations and creating these vaccines to prepare for these events. Are we lucky? Or are we only in this situation because they're doing this? So another article from sciencemag.org basically stating it's almost impossible for the Wuhan seafood market to be the source of the virus that was spreading globally. They're evaluating when initial reports were actually reported of people being infected with this. And this evaluation in this article is basically saying infection had to have started in October, November of 2019 before it ever was brought in or out of that market. And that it most likely started somewhere else. Okay? It says, now it seems clear that the seafood market is not the only origin of the virus, but to be honest, we still don't know where the virus came from now. So it also notes that the discovery of the coronavirus that causes Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, a sometimes fatal disease that occurs sporadically, came from a patient in Saudi Arabia in June 2012, although latter studies traced it back to an earlier hospital outbreak of unexplained pneumonia in Jordan, April 2012. Stored samples from 2 people who died in Jordan confirmed they had been infected with the virus. Retrospective analysis of blood samples in China from people and animals, including vendors from other animal markets, may reveal a clear picture of where the 2019 nCoV originated, he suggests. 2019 nCoV is the coronavirus everybody's infected with right now. So, yes, we need to evaluate it and try to figure out what's going on. So this is what happened. China releases they did a genomic profile. They ran the whole genome of the virus and released it so that everybody could analyze. This is what we're facing. Take a look. Help us out. Right? The National Genomic Data Center has released the 2019 novel coronavirus database, according to the Beijing Institute of Genomics from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Now, by using this database, researchers carried out the variation analysis of the genome of the 2019 nCoV and obtained detailed information on variation degree, variation region, variation base between the 2019 nCoV strains, and the SARS nCoV and between the 2019 nCoV strains and SARS-like coronavirus bat strains. So they've done all these comparisons of this genome versus this other virus genome versus this other virus genome. Where are the similarities? Where are the differences? Where did this come from? So what they're finding is it's 80% similar to SARS, which was an outbreak back in 2003, and 88% related to the sequenced genes from the bat coronavirus. But it's not a complete match to any of those. So where did it actually come from? Well, I highly recommend, if you haven't seen today's episode of The High Wire with Del Bigtree, they actually go over this in great detail. James Lyons Weiler, a researcher here in the United States, actually evaluated the entire genome of the 2019 nCoV, compared it to all the coronaviruses that we have a genome for, and found a very important commonality in the 2019 virus that's spreading like crazy right now, and a lab-created coronavirus that was designed to specifically be able to jump from animal to human so that they could create a vaccine for it. And it tied back to this patent, this Chinese patent, CN1276777C, for a SARS vaccine of adenovirus vector and preparation method application of coronavirus S genes. So what they did was, the present invention belongs to the field of genetic engineering, particularly relates to adenoviral vector SARS vaccine, their preparation and corona S genes. And so basically they took a coronavirus, combined it with SARS to give it the ability to gain functionality to be able to cross from human to animals. And this is so stupid. It's what we do. We're never going to learn the consequences of playing God are irreversible, but we do it all the time, and it always starts with genetic engineering, genetic modification. We're destroying our health with these genetic engineering of God's already divinely designed plans. Okay? We think we can one-up God. We try, we fail, and we pay the price every time. So there was a specific vector that tied back it's not even a wild virus. It's a lab-created virus that's spreading right now. If they call it a wild virus, they're lying. They know almost without a doubt at this point that this is a lab-created virus that is out of control. And so let's look at how this has happened over the years. So this is an article from 2015 where a lab-made coronavirus triggered a massive debate because it was a very risky thing that they did here. Ralph Barrick, an infectious disease researcher at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill last week, published a study on his team's efforts to engineer a virus with the surface protein of the SHC-014 coronavirus. So they take the surface protein of this coronavirus, which was found in horseshoe bats in China, and the backbone of one that causes human-like severe acute respiratory syndrome. There's the SARS epidemic that happened. So they took SARS, combined it with another bat coronavirus to create a hybrid virus that could infect human airway cells and caused disease in mice, according to the team's results, which were published in Nature magazine, which is this article here. This SARS-like cluster of circulating bat coronaviruses show potential for human emergence. So they genetically engineered it so that it can be infectious to humans, and here we are today. So the results demonstrate the ability of the SHC-014 surface protein to bind and infect human cells, validating concerns that the virus or other coronaviruses found in bat species may be capable of making the leap to people without first evolving in an intermediate host. They also reignited a debate about whether that information justifies the risk of such work. They manipulated and genetically engineered the virus to be able to do it, just to prove that it could, to justify a vaccine. And here we are. If the new virus escaped, or was let out on accident, nobody could predict the trajectory. In October 2013, the U.S. government put a stop to all federal funding for gain-of-function studies. The gain-of-function studies is the actual genetic engineering of the viruses to give them the ability to cross over from species to other species where that function didn't exist before. We are doing this on purpose. Okay, with particular concerns rising about influenza, SARS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, the National Institute of Health has funded such studies because they help define the fundamental nature of human pathogen interactions, enable the assessment of the pandemic potential of emerging infectious agents, and inform public health and preparedness efforts. Oh, thank you. This is just another one of those stupid ways of saying we're trying to protect you when we're actually putting you in harm's way. If you don't remember my video about trust is one of your most precious gifts, be careful where you place it, go watch that video, because this is falling right in line where we're just another one of those stupid experiments. The world is an experiment, and they're just letting these viruses go and seeing where it goes. If you don't think this is happening on purpose, think again. The National Institute of Health Director Francis Collins said in a statement at the time, the studies, however, also entail biosafety and biosecurity risks which need to be understood. The debate comes down to how informative the results are. The only impact of this work is the creation in a lab of a new non-natural risk. And that's exactly what happened. So several of these other articles go into kind of the history of this type of reckless science. This one comes from 2012. The end of days for the H5N1 moratorium. That's the avian influenza, avian flu. Okay. After 2 days meeting in Bethesda, Maryland this week, government officials have finally reached a consensus on a policy to review requests to research the potentially dangerous avian influenza virus. The new policy could end long-standing debate that began when two research groups published studies showing their ability to create viruses that are transmissible between mammals. We are purposely creating these viruses in the lab. The Institute of Health policy, which is to take effect next month, will effectively lift a 12-month ban on this research. I suspect that it will be seeing a lifting of the moratorium on the part of the people who are not National Institute of Health funded. The new policy is designed to help reviewers decide which gain-of-function experiments to fund. So they put it on hold. It's back on track in 2012. They're going to let people go on and study these gain-of-functions. And then it gets put on hold again. The creation of the H5N1 bird flu strains that are transmissible between mammals has thrown the scientific community into a heated debate about whether such research should be allowed and how it should be regulated. No, it should not be allowed. At a time when regulation is generally controversial, a new and especially ominous burden has emerged. Researchers in Rotterdam and Wisconsin, supported by the U.S. National Institute of Health, have manipulated the highly virulent H5N1 strain of avian influenza virus to render it more contagious. Have manipulated the highly virulent H5N1 strain of avian influenza virus to render it more contagious. They did so by inducing a small number of genetic mutations and then passing the altered strain through generations of ferrets, thereby generating additional variations. The resulting virus is a spread between the animal through aerosol droplets expelled by a cough or a sneeze. Ferrets are considered a good model for humans as far as the dynamic of infections are concerned. While the fatality rate of people sickened after exposure to H5N1 infected animals has been high, the percentage of mortality was high at around 50%, only about 500 people worldwide were known to have contracted the disease. Up to that point, the natural occurring H5N1 strain had not been readily transmissible between humans until we got a hold of it, genetically modified it, and made it more contagious to humans. Wow. Thanks, science. You guys have been great to us. And then in 2014, another moratorium on the gain-of-function research. In the wake of a handful of biosafety lapses at federal research facilities, the U.S. government is temporarily halting funding for the new studies aiming to give novel function to influenza, SARS, and MERS viruses. Blah, 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 blah. National Institute has funded such studies because they help define the fundamental nature of human pathogen interactions, and it enables the assessment of the pandemic potential and emerging infectious agents and inform the public health of preparedness efforts. These studies, however, also entail biosafety and biosecurity risks which need to be understood. The government has finally seen the light. This is what we have all been waiting for in a campaign for. I shall sleep better tonight, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you got to start connecting the dots. Look at our history. Again, this long game of propaganda, this is all part of the long game. They're saying, oh, we have to take these risks to create these extremely dangerous viruses because we need to understand pandemic better. This is for your protection. And how are we going to understand pandemics better? Well, the best way to do it is to create these genetically engineered viruses and then accidentally release them to the wild and watch it burn. Observation. This is how we learn. And they don't give a crap that it's going to kill thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people along the way. And they're going to capitalize on the fear that it generates to keep you to buy into their protection. Okay, this is a scientific mob protecting. You're buying your protection from them. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem. We react. They offer us a solution. We buy. Don't be stupid. Do not buy. Focus on your health. Focus on yourself. SARS was a great example. That was released. It became a huge problem. But guess what? It went away on its own. Just like scarlet fever. Just like all the infectious diseases. The ones that have a vaccine, the vaccine receives credit for. The ones that never had a vaccine, like scarlet fever or SARS, that happen to go away on their own, oh, well, let's not talk about that. Okay? Because the vaccine didn't exist for those. It'll go away on its own. This is just another paper talking about the moratorium on the gain-of-function research because it's so highly problematic and creating these virulent strains that are unstoppable, which we're facing right now. So anyway, go watch today's episode of The High Wire, Coronavirus, What They Aren't Telling You. They go into great detail about this and a lot more. Another great episode. I can't speak highly enough of The High Wire. So another study that they highlight in that episode is this immunization with SARS coronavirus vaccine led to pulmonary immunopathology on the challenge with the SARS virus. So basically they created this vaccine, but it really created this massive Th2 response, which created a massive allergic response in the lungs. And it was too virulent, too strong of a reaction every time, so they couldn't move forward with the vaccine. It was more dangerous than SARS itself. So you can go ahead and read that. But it was the development of this vaccine that got us to where we are today. So these are just things I want you to keep in mind when you're watching BS propaganda like this, where they're propping up the science around vaccinology and vaccines as this savior to the world, when in reality, this research is creating the pandemics that we're facing today and tomorrow and in the future. And they try to scare you with the past, right? The Great Flu pandemic of 1918. And they talked about how it was so bad and people's lungs were filling with fluid and dying, and that was happening. And if you watch one of my other past videos, that actually happened. Those deaths happened after they started treating people with very high dose aspirin. And then later on, after about millions of people died, they realized, oh, aspirin actually causes the fluid accumulation in the lungs, and that's why people died. It wasn't the actual flu that was killing them. It was the medical intervention. So they only will use the fact that millions of people died during that epidemic, but they don't tell you exactly what contributed to their deaths. All they say is flu-related death, flu-related death, coronavirus-related death. If they had the virus and they died, it was because of the virus. No other cofactors, no other, what led to their death? What were the commonalities of the people that died? Was it because they were given aspirin? Was it because they were given fever reducers? Was it because they were given Tamiflu, which is a horrible product? Ask the questions. Do your research. Study this information. It's just really important. So there's plenty of fear propaganda out there right now. They're scaring you in any way they can with infectious disease. They're even pulling cards about aliens. Yes, there's aliens here and there's aliens there, and it's inevitable that there's going to have an alien attack, and we need our Space Force, and they're trying to get you guys scared. Why? Because if there's a massive alien threat out there that America alone can't take on, well, we all need to come together as a world and combine our resources to be able to fight the aliens, right? Just another tool, tactic to get you to get scared and buy into the globalist agenda, okay? Don't buy it, okay? Be an independent critical thinker. Always pay attention to what's being reported, because it's being sent your way for a reason. But again, don't just keep the blinders on. Be able to look over here and always think, all right, this is great information. Thanks for sharing, CNN or whoever. But what aren't you telling me? That's what I want to know. And you go out and look for it, because there are researchers out there that want you to know the whole story. And you have a pretty powerful tool right now. At least we have the internet. Algorithms are going to prevent you from finding the truth. You have to dig deeper. You have to find ways and resources to get there and bookmark them, because eventually you're not going to be able to get there unless you know the IP address or whatever you're trying to get to, because algorithms are going to control the narrative just like the TV used to. So if you want to keep on top of it, you got to start getting good at doing your own research and sharing that information with family and friends, just whether they believe you or not. Just share it. Let go of your own pride. If you're going to be the crazy one in the family, be the crazy one in the family. That's fine. I know that's me. And I'm okay with it. Because at some level, people do listen. And they do start to learn and go, yeah, he's a little out there, but I think he might be right here. I think he might be right there. And that's all it takes. We need to plant those seeds, because there are destructive seeds being planted in our brains all day, every day, forever. Remember, it is a slow and subtle manipulation of your behaviors, of your thoughts, that are leading us down this path as a group. The manipulation of the minds of the masses is how we're being controlled. And the more you try to pay attention to it, the better off you are at protecting yourself. And that's the goal. So, yes, coronavirus is dangerous, but the real question is, why is it out there? Where did it come from? Are vaccines really your best choice? Or is there other ways to protect yourself? Same thing with medical interventions. And I'll say, I've said it before, medicine has its place, okay? Especially in emergency medicine and trauma. If you're in a car accident, if you have a stroke or a heart attack and you need emergency care, that is where medicine really shines. Okay, you need that skilled surgeon to put you back together. You need that person that understands the physiology, anatomy and physiology of your body and how to put you back together the way we were designed to be. That's important. Okay? It's this other crap all along the way that you're taking your well child into a well child check and they come out a whole different kid, and not in a good way. Regressing, seizures, chronic illness. Stop going to these well child checks. It's not for their benefit. It's to keep you plugged into the system. Okay? Healthcare is the most profitable market in the world. That's why every tech industry is moving into healthcare. Okay? There's more money in healthcare than anywhere because we are the sickest generation of people that's ever been on this planet. Because there's been more and more scientific intervention getting in the way. We're trying to control and manipulate everything we discover about our body instead of naturally supporting it. We learn about it. Science is great. It has taught me so much about how essential nutrition and vitamins and nutrients and minerals all balance and work together, and hormones and neurons and all the different communication pathways that exist in our body. Science is amazing to teach us these things. And science will tell you, all right, these flavonoids and these terpenes and this food and these vitamins, it does this to this function and it does this to this function and it works better this way. But we don't want you to have to focus on that type of nutrition or eating a specific diet or being in a healthy state. We want to be able to just take a pill and flip that switch manually. Sure, fasting for so many hours, let's say 24 hours, can trigger autophagy and it starts cleaning up old cells and the body starts getting rid of cancer cells and bacteria and viruses and yeasts and molds and replenishing old with new. Autophagy is great, but we don't want you to have to fast. We're going to find a way to create a pill that you can take to manually flip that switch and generate autophagy. Oh, I'm sure it'll come with some kind of package of side effects by doing that manually with some kind of medical intervention, but that'll be worth it. Then you don't have to fast. Right? Fasting is one of the best things you can do. Work fasting into your life on a regular basis. It's not a sacrifice. It's good for you. Okay, here in America, we are literally eating ourselves to death. Okay, we used to be number one in obesity. Now Mexico is, and it comes down to a crappy standard American diet of soda and high carbs and sugars and donuts, and I mean every holiday is just aisles and aisles and aisles of candy. You change your lifestyle and the holidays come around, it's like, oh crap, what do we do for our kids because everything is about candy? Well, you start going back to the reason the holiday actually exists and stop going back to crappy food and crappy candy, and you live a healthy lifestyle and you benefit from it. You don't live in fear, and none of this propaganda is all that effective on you. Anyway, so many benefits to focusing on health and nutrition and learning, yes, from things that science has uncovered, but learning how to naturally support the science, the functionality of what science talks about naturally. Everything that is going on in our bodies, whether it's the immune system, the endocrine system, the endocannabinoid system, the central nervous system, I don't care. They all work in tandem with each other. Science breaks it down mechanistically and says, oh, this does this and this does this. They all work together, okay? You need it all working appropriately. And it all needs the proper environment. And nobody out there is suffering from a Zoloft deficiency or a gabapentin deficiency or a benzodiazepine deficiency or an opioid deficiency. No, there's some other type of nutritional deficiency that's going on, as well as some other type of toxic exposure that's affecting you. We live in a toxic deficient world and environment, and you get to do your research and figure out how to eliminate those toxins and how to support and get rid of those deficiencies so that you have what you need in your home, in your pantry, in your fridge. If you have a medicine cabinet, sure, in your medicine cabinet. We our fridge and pantry is our medicine cabinet. Our food is our medicine. And we do utilize supplements when we need to. If we feel something coming around or going through the house or the neighborhood, like a cold or anything, yep, we jump on vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams every hour until you start getting the loose stools. We utilize sodium ascorbate. It's fantastic. We use vitamin D. We use sardines because they're loaded with vitamin A, D, and omega-3 fatty acids that are fantastic for you. We eat nutrient-dense vegetables, cooked and raw. Holden and I have been strictly keto for a few months. I've done intermittent fasting for over 2 years. It's been fantastic for me. Fantastic. I feel better than ever. And I challenge you guys to just start doing research every single day. Every single day. 5 minutes. I don't care. Subscribe to whoever connects to you. For me, it's Dr. Eric Berg. For others, it's Dr. Ken Berry. For others, it's Dr. Axe. Whoever. Find whoever connects with you. I like people like Thomas DeLauer, Dr. Berg. Yeah, I like Frank Tufano. I think he's quirky, but he gives great information. I love reading. I love Dr. Russell Blaylock's books, The Magnesium Miracle, Simland, Metabolic Autophagy. There's so much wellness that comes from lifestyle and nutrition. It's insane. The more you learn, the better you adjust your lifestyle. I've been continuously adjusting my lifestyle drastically over the past 6 years, and the past 2 years have been the most impactful for my family and for me. And I'm going to continue doing this type of education throughout the rest of my life and continue to fine-tune things and get better. I'm not perfect. My family's not perfect. We make exceptions. We make bad choices. I make fewer exceptions because I'm constantly researching and I don't feel good about making the exception. But that's just me. You do your research, then you do you. All right, guys. I ramble on. Love you. Talk to you later. Bye.